Well, throughout this crisis, we've been keeping a close eye on the impact of COVID-19 on the UK in terms of the numbers, the data, and this chart in particular. It is a very depressing chart showing you the death tolls in various countries around the world. But depressing as it is, it's also very important because how steep these lines reflects how fast the disease is spreading in these countries. So when people talk about flattening the curve, this is what they mean, getting these lines, which are steep here. This shows growth rates to flatten out over the course of the next few weeks. You can look at the difference between South Korea and many countries in Europe for a sense of what we're talking about here. And if you compare in particular Italy with the UK. So there's Italy showing a very steep increase, and this is a logarithmic chart. Like I say, it's a growth rate chart. Let's add the UK on there and see how it compares. For most of the last few weeks, the UK has been below Italy, but we just had the announcement that there have been 6,159 total deaths in the UK, a depressing number, the highest daily death toll as well that we've had yet. But as Sir Patrick Vallance was saying earlier on, there is some cause for hope, because look back, about a week ago, that line was steeper. It was doubling every 3 days, the rate, the total death toll. But in the past week, it's got a bit flatter, so now doubling every 4 days. So a flatter line is better news for the UK. Nonetheless, if you extrapolate that on another week or so, you're still talking about the UK overtaking Italy in terms of the severity of the crisis, getting to 10,000 deaths by the weekend. It's a terrible number, but it's worth just bearing in mind. A lot of people thought that might happen even earlier if that line had been steeper. So some evidence that the lockdown is starting to work there. But you have to bear in mind there are all sorts of different ways of measuring these statistics. So even when it comes to death rates, so those numbers come from the government. Each day we get a daily toll of how many people have died. But there is a big difference between that announcement, that's the lower line there, and what's actually happening on those given days, which we only find out later on. And that gap actually might account for about 22% or so. So we might be undercounting deaths each day by about 22%, at least in the increase of this crisis. But we are starting to get a sense now that this has real implications for the UK as a whole and indeed for death rates as a whole. This shows you weekly deaths from all causes, so not just COVID-19. You can see COVID-19 there, 539 deaths in the week to the 27th of March. But then there are all other causes as well. And what's significant about this is this area now of total deaths has overtaken the average, that dotted line. So we are in a situation now where people talk about excess deaths, excess mortalities in the UK. That's a real concern, but there are some signs for hope, as I say, with those overall death rates, and the lines might be flattening now.